What if the worst day of your life was secretly the beginning of your greatest blessing? Imagine losing everything you own overnight. Your dreams, your future, your only source of income. Most people would call it the end, but one old fisherman simply smiled and said, "The sea hasn't finished writing today's story." This is the unforgettable story of Elias, a man who never judged life too quickly. In a quiet fishing village where the sound of waves greeted every sunrise, lived an old fisherman named Elias. Unlike the other fishermen, Elias wasn't rich. He didn't own the biggest boat. He didn't catch the most fish. And he never competed with anyone. Every morning before sunrise, he quietly pushed his small wooden boat into the sea while everyone else was still asleep. The villagers often laughed at him. "Look at Elias," one fisherman joked. "He's been using the same old boat for 20 years. Another laughed. "He'll stay poor forever." But Elias never argued. Instead, he smiled and replied, "The ocean gives enough to those who know how to wait." No one understood what he meant. To everyone else, success meant bigger boats, bigger catches, and bigger houses. But Elias believed something different. He believed peace was the greatest treasure anyone could own. Every evening after returning from the sea, he sat outside his tiny wooden house with his young daughter, Lily. Together they watched the sunset paint the ocean gold. Lily once asked, "Father, don't you wish we were rich like everyone else?" Elias gently smiled. "My dear, if your heart is peaceful, you're already richer than most people." Lily never forgot those words. One afternoon, something unusual happened. A wealthy merchant arrived in the village. He wore expensive clothes, rode in a luxurious carriage, and was surrounded by servants. The merchant had heard stories about Elias's old wooden boat. People believed it had been handcrafted by one of the greatest boat builders many years ago. The merchant walked toward Elias and said, "I'll pay you 1,000 gold coins for your boat." The villagers gasped. That amount of money could buy 3 new boats. The merchant continued, "If that's not enough, name your price." Everyone expected Elias to accept immediately, and said, he looked at his weathered boat, smiled softly, and shook his head. "I'm sorry, this boat isn't for sale." The merchant frowned. "It's just an old piece of wood." Elias quietly replied, "To you perhaps, but some things carry memories that money can never buy." The merchant left in frustration. The villagers surrounded Elias. "You're a fool. You just threw away a fortune. You'll regret this for the rest of your life." Elias calmly answered, "Maybe, or maybe not. The sea always reveals the truth, but never in a hurry." The villagers rolled their eyes and walked away. That night, dark clouds covered the sky. The wind became stronger. Thunder shook the entire village. Rain poured like waterfalls from the heavens. It became the worst storm anyone could remember. Massive waves crashed against the shore. Trees snapped. Roofs flew into the air. And by morning, Elias's beloved wooden boat was gone, broken into pieces, scattered across the beach. The villagers rushed to see the damage. Some shook their heads. Others whispered, "If only he had sold the boat yesterday." One man laughed. "Now he has nothing." The merchant was right. The villagers looked at Elias with pity. But instead of crying, instead of blaming fate, instead of asking, "Why me?" Elias quietly picked up one broken piece of wood. He gently brushed the sand away. Then he smiled. "The sea hasn't finished writing today's story." The villagers stared at him in disbelief. Had the old fisherman finally lost his mind? As Elias turned over one of the broken wooden planks, he suddenly noticed something strange. Hidden beneath years of paint were mysterious symbols, symbols he had never seen before. His heart skipped a beat. Very carefully, he brushed away the remaining sand, and beneath the strange markings, he saw what looked like the edge of an ancient map. The strange markings on the broken piece of wood left Elias speechless. He slowly turned the plank over and examined it again. There, beneath the faded paint, was a drawing of a coastline, a small island, and beside it, an ancient symbol that Elias recognized immediately. It was the same symbol his grandfather had once drawn in an old notebook. Lily looked at him with curiosity. "Father, what is that?" Elias didn't answer. He rushed inside the cottage and opened an old wooden chest that had belonged to his grandfather. Inside were a few photographs, a compass, some fishing tools, and an old yellowed notebook. Elias carefully opened it. Page after page was filled with drawings of the ocean. Then he found it. The same island. The same symbol. And beneath the drawing were a few faded words. "Beyond the eastern current lies an island where the sea hides more than fish." Elias stared at the words. For decades, he had believed his grandfather was simply an old fisherman. But now he wondered, what had his grandfather discovered? Lily looked at the map. "Is there treasure there?" Elias smiled. "I don't know." "Then why are you smiling?" "Because, my child, not knowing is sometimes where an adventure begins." The next morning, Elias showed the map to a few villagers. The moment they saw it, their attitude changed. The same people who had called Elias foolish the day before were suddenly excited. "You found a treasure map. You're going to become rich. You were lucky after all." But Elias didn't celebrate. He simply said, "We don't know what lies at the end of this map." One villager laughed. "Of course we know. Treasure." Elias shook his head. "Maybe." Then he smiled. "Maybe not." Elias spent the next several weeks building another boat. It was smaller than his old one but stronger. Lily helped him whenever she could. Together, they repaired the wooden frame, tied the ropes, and prepared enough food for several days. Finally, the morning came. Elias stood at the shore. The village gathered to watch. Some wished him luck. Others secretly expected him to return empty-handed. One fisherman shouted, "Don't forget the gold." Everyone laughed. Elias simply waved goodbye. Then he and Lily pushed the boat into the sea. For 2 days the journey was peaceful. The ocean was calm. The wind was gentle. And the compass pointed steadily east. But on the third morning everything changed. Dark clouds appeared on the horizon. The wind suddenly became violent. Waves began rising around the boat. Lily held tightly onto the side. "Father, we should turn back." Elias looked at the compass. Then he looked at the waves. "We can't fight the ocean," he said. "We have to listen to it." A huge wave struck the boat. Crack! The wooden mast snapped. The sail disappeared into the water. The boat began drifting helplessly. Elias tried to control it, but the current was too strong. They were no longer heading toward the island. They were being carried somewhere completely different. After hours of drifting, the storm finally weakened. And through the morning mist, Elias saw land. An island. But it wasn't the island on the map. It was somewhere else. Lily looked at her father. "Are we lost?" Elias looked toward the unfamiliar shore. For the first time, even he didn't know what to say. Then he smiled. "Perhaps." The boat slowly reached the beach. Elias and Lily stepped onto the sand. The island was completely silent. No houses. No boats. No people. Only dense trees and the sound of distant waves. They walked deeper into the forest. Suddenly, they heard a voice. "You shouldn't have come here." Elias froze. Lily grabbed his hand. An old man slowly stepped out from behind the trees. His hair was completely white. His clothes were worn. And around his neck hung an ancient wooden symbol. Elias stared at it. It was the exact same symbol carved into his grandfather's map. The old man looked at Elias carefully. Then he asked, "Who are you?" Elias showed him the broken piece of wood. The old man's eyes widened. He whispered, "Where did you find that?" Elias replied, "It belonged to my grandfather." The old man became completely silent. Then he looked toward the ocean and said something that Elias never expected to hear. "Your grandfather came here many years ago." Elias's heart began beating faster. "My grandfather?" The old man nodded. "He came searching for treasure." He paused. But he discovered something far more valuable. Elias stepped closer. What did he discover? The old man looked directly into his eyes. Then he smiled. "That is why you are here." The old man's words echoed in Elias's mind. "Your grandfather came here many years ago." Elias couldn't believe what he had just heard. He took a step forward. My grandfather? How do you know him? The old hermit looked at the ancient map and smiled. He arrived on this island many years ago, searching for treasure just like many others. Did he find it? Elias asked. The hermit slowly sat on an old tree stump. Yes. Lily's eyes widened. Where is it? The old man laughed softly. That's the same question everyone asks. For the next few days, Elias and Lily stayed on the island. The hermit taught them things they had never learned before. He showed them how to read the movement of the ocean currents. He taught them how birds could predict changing weather. He explained how the direction of the wind could reveal hidden dangers. Every day became a lesson. Every wave carried a message. Weeks passed. One evening, while watching the sunset, Elias finally asked, "Where is the treasure my grandfather discovered?" The hermit pointed toward the ocean. "The treasure isn't buried under the sand." He pointed toward Elias. "It's hidden inside you." Elias sat silently. The old man continued, "People spend their lives chasing gold, but they forget to chase wisdom. Gold can disappear overnight. Wisdom stays with you forever." At that moment, Elias finally understood why his grandfather had left the map behind. It wasn't a map leading to riches. It was a map leading to a lesson. Several months later, Elias and Lily returned to their village. The villagers immediately surrounded them. "Where's the treasure? Did you become rich? Did you find gold?" Elias smiled. "No." The villagers laughed. "We knew it. We told you it was a waste of time." But Elias didn't argue. He simply returned to his daily routine. A few weeks later, something unusual happened. A group of fishermen discovered a huge school of fish far from the village. Everyone rushed toward the ocean. "This is our chance to become rich." Boats quickly filled the harbor. Fishermen prepared their nets. People shouted with excitement. But Elias noticed something strange. The birds were flying unusually low. The waves were moving in different directions. The wind felt heavier than usual. He remembered the hermit's lessons. Lily looked at him. "Father, aren't we going?" Elias looked at the ocean. "No." The villagers laughed again. "He's afraid. He's becoming too old. He's missing the opportunity of a lifetime." But Elias stayed on the shore. Hours later, dark clouds appeared. Powerful winds began to blow. A violent storm suddenly struck the ocean. Several fishing boats were trapped. Many boats were destroyed. When the storm finally ended, the village fell silent. People realized that Elias had seen the danger before everyone else. His knowledge had saved his life. Years passed. Lily grew up. Under her father's guidance, she became one of the most respected captains on the entire coast. She taught other fishermen everything Elias had learned. Slowly, the entire village changed. People stopped chasing quick success. They started respecting patience. One evening, the same wealthy merchant returned to the village. He found Elias sitting beside the ocean, watching another beautiful sunset. The merchant sat beside him and asked, "Tell me your secret. How were you always so lucky?" Elias smiled. He looked toward the endless sea and said, "Luck never followed me. Patience did. Every storm carried a lesson. Every loss opened a new door. I simply waited long enough to understand why things happened." The merchant remained silent. For the first time, he finally understood. Life is like the ocean. Some waves take things away. Some waves bring unexpected gifts. But every wave teaches us something. Don't judge your life because of one bad day. Don't become arrogant because of one good day. The story isn't over yet. And sometimes, the tide that takes something away today is the same tide bringing something better tomorrow.